Good morning and welcome to the annual meeting for the Brainerd Lakes Area Economic Development Corporation. My name is Paul Means. I'm the current president of the board. We're excited about today's program as we have a couple of excellent local presenters who have an interesting story to share with us on two of our area's historic sites, along with our featured speaker, Al Hodnik, the chairman and CEO of Elite, which is the parent company of Minnesota Power. Before we get started with today's program, I'd like to recognize all of our members and their guests and thank them for their ongoing commitment to BLAEDC. Your continued support provides us with the resources we need for our area to grow and prosper. Next, I'd like to recognize our area elected officials who have joined us today, especially thank those who participated in the Eggs and Issues Forum this morning, sponsored by the Brainerd Lakes Chamber. We appreciate the fact that you are taking the time to provide us with updates on the current legislative session, along with getting feedback from our area's business leaders. I'm sure and the bottom line is, please keep our taxes down and give us more services. So however you can do that, you can just let us know. But at this time, I'd like to ask all the area's elected officials to please stand and be recognized. Also, I'd like to recognize and thank those representatives from our economic development partners who are here today from Creedy, Crow Wing County HRA, Lake Edward Township, along with the cities of Baxter, Brainerd, Cross Lake, Jenkins, Nisswa, and Pequot Lakes. Again, we appreciate your continued financial support for BLAEDC, as those resources are a critical part of the region's ongoing economic development efforts. We'd also like to have any of those representatives of those entities please stand and be recognized. Last, I'd like to recognize the BLAEDC staff, current board members, and emeritus directors, all who have committed countless hours to the success and the growth of our region. And again, I'd ask those people to stand and be recognized. Along with that, I'd like to acknowledge our newest board member, who is Janelle Riley, who will replace Kevin Larson. Kevin has served as a BLAEDC board member for the past 9 years and now will become a director emeritus. He's also a past president of the organization. Kevin wasn't able to be here with us today. Otherwise, we'd have a plaque for him. But anyway, let's recognize Kevin for his long-term commitment to the BLAEDC organization. So, Dave Johnson, are you here? I'd like Dave to come forward. Dave is the outgoing chair of our executive initiative. And under Dave's leadership, the Executive Initiative Program has become a highly successful extension of the services and programs provided by BLAEDC by a group of volunteers who have demonstrated a passion to share their time, talents, and experience with our local companies. Dave, thanks for your service for BLAEDC over the last couple of years. Great job, Dave. Kevin Egan is agreed to take his spot. Kevin, are you there? Okay, great. So I guess I'd also ask all the execs that are here to maybe stand up and be recognized. So. Okay, at this time, I'll turn the program over to Sheila Haverkamp, our Executive Director.
I was thinking about making a baseball card for everyone here today. Your picture, some information about you, and your contribution to making our community what it is today. I see all of us as this great team, each with our individual strengths, and together as a force that can win regional tournaments, state championships, national events, and even the World Series. Our area has talented people, diverse companies, strong organizations, and unique communities who make us special. What a great area. With a tremendous history, turbulent at times, but what Minnesota team doesn't have adversity now and then, and momentous change in our future, but reasons to celebrate who we are today and a future that is bright. As I contemplated this past year, it felt like a year of renewal and rebuilding. Paper making is no more, but we have a large industrial facility that will bring new prospects. The former now have new energy. Mining remnants that were once an eyesore are now reveled by many as a world destination for silent sports. Industrial parks that have seen no new construction for several years now have new activity and pending land sales. Even BLAEDC and the Chamber contributed to the reuse of existing space, making significant investments in our futures and improving our images. So many projects this past year will bring opportunities in the years to come, hence the theme of BLAEDC's 2014 annual report. BLAEDC never loses sight of our mission: expand business, build community, and grow jobs. We focus on projects and initiatives that position the area for growth by creating a positive business environment and a can-do attitude. Our priority is always to assist and coordinate economic development business prospects with their needs, which vary from project to project, but may include everything from confidential visits to our area, sites and facilities, financing, technical information, data on our area, support with government processes, and more. We are frequently the first impression and resource for projects. Our efforts to drive prospects center on our existing companies, startup ventures, and when possible, targeted marketing to attract new investment. Our special marketing projects that were derived from the 2020 vision and enhanced economic development endeavors continue to develop within our organization. The BLAEDC execs are becoming familiar with the many unique businesses in our area through their monthly meetings. They offer periodic training programs, share their individual expertise with our businesses and communities. They have 3 rent-a-boards currently operating, and connect with their networks to promote and carry the message that our area is ready to grow. Our tech services program promotes growth of this industry cluster, which includes professional back office, process operations, call centers, and tech-related companies. The effort also involves supporting broadband infrastructure, training and attracting skilled workers, and marketing our community as tech-ready. The CTC meeting room at our new location will help us achieve our tech-ready brand. We anticipate regional and state recognition due to its high-tech capacity. Definitely a home run for our community to help attract business to start, expand, and locate here. New programs include mining for economic development and connecting with home-based businesses. Our area is rich in natural resources, including minerals, manganese, peat, aggregates, and timber. 2 of BLAEDC's execs are helping us to further understand these resources and how they may help us drive economic prosperity for the future. I think we all know that our area has home-based business operations. In fact, some of our existing larger companies were at one time home operations. Can you imagine having a company in our area that employs 1,000 people? According to the US Census, we have 5,000 home-based businesses in our area. BLAEDC feels they deserve enhanced attention and recognition, and we hope to continue building relationships and connections with them. So how is BLAEDC doing? The stats on our scorecard total coordinating and facilitating more than 405 projects that have resulted in $678 million in capital investments and more than 4,768 jobs. The annual report at your table includes additional information for your review. The BLAEDC board recently held a strategic planning session with outside facilitators from Springstead. During the meeting, the facilitators shared their insights and perspectives that I think are worth sharing with you today. Our observation about BLAEDC is that the organization seems to have significant stability and financial strength relative to other similar regional marketing organizations around the state. We also think BLAEDC is excellent at managing relationships with their local partners, which is one of the biggest challenges a regional group faces. These things, together with their track record of successes, put them at the forefront of other similar groups. So back to the baseball game. BLAEDC is an integral team member, focused on business growth and job creation for our area. We continue to enhance our image this year with a significant investment in our new location. Definitely overdue, but worth the wait, and I hope each of you get to tour soon. We assembled a first-class 2014 annual report, and please share it with others when you are done reading it. We have some new marketing materials that offer business and industry a glimpse of the amenities our area has to offer them, and a new video that I would like to show you now as I conclude my presentation. As they say, let's play ball. hope you enjoyed it, and definitely share it with your networks and connections, and you can find it on BLAEDC's homepage of our website. Two individuals that are renovating and repurposing that were historically our largest employment centers are here with us today to share their visions and stories with you. Our first speaker's energy and creativity is electrifying. Her career that she intends to share with you will help you appreciate what was recently been accomplished and what opportunities await us with the redevelopment of the Northern Pacific Center. Please help me welcome Aimee Jobe.
Hi, everyone. I'm not quite as tall as Sheila. I'm a little shorter. Thank you for having me today. And this is something I'm really passionate about, so I'm going to try not to overtalk and just kind of fly through my presentation here. But I wanted to give everyone a little personal background for those of you who don't know me and wonder who the heck am I coming into Brainerd and kind of doing this. So I do have a few photos in the beginning, though, just to walk on through here. Okay, so as you all probably know, Northern Pacific Center is 8 buildings located on 47 acres on the east side of town that are absolutely beautiful. I fell in love with them the first time I saw them when I was looking for a space for my photo studio in 2011. Weddings have been a big part of our business growing, and I just wanted to preface with some images. These images were actually taken inside the power plant, a building that most people wonder what it looks like, so I just wanted to show a few of those too with the old history. And here's one of our original drawings, actually from the late 1800s of the property. And a little more about the weddings. You know, everyone loves our big red doors, and that's actually our new event space, decorated for one of our last fall weddings this year. So just a little bit about myself. I was actually born and raised in Aiken before I moved to Minneapolis in 1999. And my career was in vending for 14 years, vending food service. And that's basically where all of my business experience comes from. And then a little bit about Northern Pacific Center's past. So Dick and Dave bought the property in 1993. There's 2 photos of them from the 90s. And they basically did all of the hard work. They brought the roads in, the roofs, getting new electrical in, things like that. And I have some photos kind of to share with you of what it did look like and what a lot of people still think it looks like out there. So here's some photos showing the roofs that were really bad. A lot of people tell me, oh, is there still birds flying right through the roof rafters? No, there's not. There's new roofs on the buildings. And then also just showing some of the cleanup that they had to do. When they bought the property, there was stuff everywhere. Besides railroad ties, a lot of garbage, terrible roads. You can see the flood down there in the corner. I guess that's how it was every spring until they got their drainage in. The top photos are from in the clock tower before they redid the west end. And then also just the bottom photo also showing just there was a lot of trash removal. And for people that think it doesn't take a long time, it is 47 acres of cleanup, which is a lot. So a little about me currently and kind of how I came into the picture. So I, in 2013, convinced Dave Hutton, the half owner, that we should do a wedding venue. So he kind of took on my idea, and we moved forward, and I was really fortunate. A lot of people joke I had the ideas and Dave had the money, so we made it happen. And I do have a lot of photos here because I am a photographer and I just want to show, but I wanted to show a lot of, it took a lot of work. So just showing that things don't happen overnight. And my family and I, we did a lot of it ourselves, besides the other half that was hired out. And you can see just some neat things like the new entry on the blacksmith shop down in the corner there. It was a lot of fun, but a lot of work, a lot of late nights. Okay, so NPC for 2014. So I've been in the process. Months ago, I already started with Dave, kind of revitalizing the entire property because it's something that I love and something that I think people have the wrong perspective. And it's really important to me that the community sees it as a positive instead of a negative to everyone, basically, in the community. So currently, we have a lot of projects going at one time, and some new things on the renovation list immediately this year. But our biggest thing is just getting out there and getting away from business industrial and getting more small business, and basically using the character as our driving force for businesses to our space. And here's some more photos. My son's usually there when we're working, and really we're there every day because it's just a wonderful place. And that's what I'm trying to get more people out there too, because it's just really amazing. And then here's another space actually that I renovated. This was my first space that I renovated in 2011. Most people walk in and they can't believe that there's a space that looks like this in Brainerd. And the thing is, they could create that too. We have the bones in the buildings and it just takes a little work. So currently with the whole site, we're doing new signage this spring and just becoming more active in the community through the chamber. With BLAEDC, we want to drive businesses to our site and more year-round tenants. So we currently have 28 tenants. And a lot of our space is filled with boats right now this winter and in the summer special events, but we want to develop those spaces for small businesses in Brainerd. And then this is actually, I wanted to show a recent event. Brighter Days held their charity gala last weekend, and just to show, people walked in and they thought, wow, there's something like this out here, which was very cool. Here's a little sneak peek at our new look. We had multiple logos created because we feel that there's different aspects to the business. One side is very commercial, and the other side is very community. And we want to make the site more approachable for other businesses. The future of the space, we're creating a new venue. There's a little preview at the logo, and it's very bright and fun. Okay, so we have a new venue that will be opening in 2016, and then as well, we're actually creating a small business rental that we are going to open this year. So not similar to the very new tech-ready room, we're looking at like single retail rental days and things like that for a lot of the home-based businesses that are looking for a space with character and frontage. It's on 13th Street, so it'll be really great. And then just a little bit of facts about our buildings. 250,000 square feet. About 40% is year-round tenants. Even though we're close to full right now, that's because of winter boat storage. But we are hoping for a larger group of year-round tenants. And basically no longer being an incubator site, we want people to make MPC their home. And kind of on that fact, a lot of people say don't mix work and your personal life, but pretty much anyone that's ever been out there has seen me either with my kid or something like that. And to me, it is very personal, the entire site, and I think that's what drives a lot of my passion. So I think just going forward, our family is going to kind of continue space by space and hopefully to encourage other businesses that are looking for space with character to come out to the property. So that's kind of it. That's the end, and hopefully it goes lots of places these next few years. So thank you. And thank you, BLAEDC. And
It's definitely been fun getting to know Aimee, and we look forward to all of her great work into the future. Our next speaker is Mike Higgins. Mike is one of those individuals that you thoroughly enjoy meeting and working with in your career. He is as American as baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. His dreams and aspirations for the former Brainerd paper plant site and facility are exciting. His hard work and dedication is definitely energizing, and please help me welcome Mike so he can share his story with you. I love getting American in there in baseball.
Thanks, Sheila, and thanks for having me here today. That was a great presentation, Aimee. I want to move over to your facility. Wow, how my life has changed in the last 6 months. Pretty crazy. I'm from Mount Pleasant, Michigan, actually Rosebush, Michigan, a town of 400 people. I'm probably, I guess, third generation small business owner. Started working at the age of 10 in my grandfather's tire store. I always like to tell the story of my first job because, it taught me that I had to work for my money. And I think that's something that the society in America has lost today. When I was 10 years old, and if I wanted something, I had to work, and I had to earn money. And my grandpa refused to buy new lead wheel weights for his tires. Anybody that's gets their tire gets out of balance and it vibrates and you balance it and you put a little lead wheel weight on there. And so he would have me go in to his tire store on Saturdays and sort the weights out by grams on newspapers, and you could put 100 on a newspaper, and then you'd paint them silver, and then you'd wait till they dry, and you'd flip them over, and you'd paint the other side silver, and then you'd put them in the containers, and I got a penny a weight. So I could make about $10 on a Saturday afternoon, and that was my first job. And that taught me that, if I went in with Grandma and Grandpa on a Saturday and I painted those weights, I could make some money. And that taught me something. And so I went in the Army out of high school, and my dad kicked me out of the house when I was 18. He owned a crane business, and I thought I'd go to work for him, and that didn't work out the way I expected. He was like my grandpa, you got to earn it, and you're not going to get this, so go earn it. And he kicked me out of the house, and I got mad and went in the Army. I was going to show him, and did very well in the Army. Got to go through jump school. Learned a lot about hard work there. 600 people were in my jump school class, and about 200 of us graduated. I graduated. I went on to Germany for a 2-year tour. Really enjoyed Europe. I worked hard while I was there, so I got a lot of time to screw off and go see the sights. My sergeant, I could get most of my work done in a couple days, so normally I'd have a 3 or 4 day weekend, and I got to travel around a lot. And I got out of the Army and went to work for one of my dad's buddies, and I worked for about a year, and I was just like, I'm doing all the work and he's making all the money. This ain't right. I got to do something different. So 22 years ago, I started my own business, a small excavating company, and that in 2004 grew into a scrap metal recycling company. I bought a scrap metal recycling yard in Michigan that had been closed for 20 years. A guy had passed away, and his son didn't carry it on, and I bought it from him and reopened it. And the challenge was awesome of reopening and repurposing that old scrap yard and starting something new. It's in a small town called Breckenridge, about maybe 1,500 people, and it really brought some new life to that community and created some jobs. And I'm not good at maintaining stuff. I like building stuff. I like starting stuff. I like, and normally I do something for 4, 5, 6 years, and then it's, there's a shiny penny over here, and sell that and move over here. And so from 2004 to 2008, the yard did really good. And then in 2008, when the economy got bad, things got bad for me. And so what do I do in the middle of that? I open up another yard, worst economy we've had in 20 years. And what do? I open up another scrap yard right in the lowest point of it. And that it was a challenge, and it excited me. And a few years after that, 2011, I guess it would be, a friend of mine a real good friend of mine now, Jeff Bean. I was buying a house, and he pulled into one of my scrap yards one day, and I was cutting up some stuff from Consumers Power. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Scrapping this stuff." And he told me that he had 1,000 ton of scrap at a paper mill in Niles, Michigan. And I kind of gave him the eye roll, and I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, old man. I've had 20 of you guys tell me you got 1,000 ton of scrap, and the most any of you have had is like 100. But I went down there, 3-hour drive, figured I was wasting a day, and got down there and walked in this 120-year-old paper mill, and sure enough, he had 1,000 ton of scrap. He actually had a couple thousand ton of scrap before we were done. And I fell in love with that building, and I fell in love with this industry that I've started in. And up until 6 months ago, I'd worked in these industrial buildings and repurposing them for other people. And I kept telling Jeff, we got to be close friends, I kept telling him, I want to own one of these. I want to get all these middle guys out of this, and I want to, I'm doing all the work. I would like to own it. And he kind of laughed and gave me the eye roll and said, "Yeah, whatever." So, and I knew I wanted to buy a paper mill because of the dynamics of the scrap and what I do and what I know. I figured that it would be an easy way to recoup some investment to get started. And so that takes me to July 11th of 2014. We had watched the paper mill in Brainerd. We had watched it on the internet, basically, and knew that it had been sold, and then it wasn't sold, and then it was sold again, and it wasn't sold. And finally, Jeff called over here and talked to the city manager, Patrick, and Patrick said, "As far as I know, it's not sold." And we called Wausau every day for a week and couldn't get through to anybody, couldn't get, they just didn't believe us. And finally, we sent an email to the Starboard Ventures in New York, to their general email saying, "Hey, we heard you got a paper mill in Brainerd for sale. We'd like to buy it." And nobody will talk to us. And 5 hours later, I got a phone call from Wausau saying, "Yeah, we got a paper mill and it's for sale." And that was on July 11th. You guys and your stuff are amazing. This is my list. I got 2 dates and 3 names on there. So July 11th, I have a phone call with Wausau, and they tell me that yes, you can look at the mill, and it's for sale. You have 45 days, because we have a deal. It can be broken, and you basically have 45 days if you want to buy it, and you have 10 days to put a deposit down on it. And I was like, well, that sounds like a challenge. So on the morning of July 11th, I drove to Brainerd, Minnesota from Mount Pleasant, Michigan for the first time. And I stepped foot on the property, and I had made arrangements to look at it on a Saturday. And I spent about 30 minutes in the building and watching everything that was going on and talking to Patrick. I knew that the plan was to tear the building down. So when I drove here, in my mind, driving for 13 hours, my expectations were that I was coming to look at a industrial property that was to be tore down and repurposed and vacant land. And spent about 30 minutes in the building, and I called Jeff and I said, "Jeff, this is the nicest industrial building that I've worked in since I've known you." And he manages about 10 million square foot of industrial properties all over Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. So I've been in a lot of industrial buildings. I said, "This can't be tore down. There's got to be something that can be done with it." And I spent 4 days here, put an environmental team together, flew them all out on Tuesday, and flew back to Michigan on Wednesday. And on August 13th, well, let me back up a little bit. In that 4 days, the first thing I did was I met Chris from BLAEDC. And we sat down, I think we had lunch or something, and we talked a little bit. And he's, Jeff's a little older and more mature than me, and probably a little more professional. Once in a while he'll wear a tie and a suit, and that's not me. So Chris was, I can remember him kind of watching Jeff and looking at me and giving me the eye roll, like, who's this guy's going to buy our paper mill? So that was my first eye roll in Brainerd was Chris, you know. He's like, okay, whatever, you know. And I'm sure Chris talked to a lot of people that were going to buy this piece of property, so the eye roll was probably warranted. And my next stop was at the city talking to Patrick Woosaw, and you know, we sat down, and that was my second eye roll. Yeah, you're going to buy our paper mill, okay. And so we went back and we talked to some people, and we talked to some environmentalists, and 10 days later I put a deposit down, and on August 13th everything came together really fast. You know, you do, sometimes in my life I got to fight for a deal, or I got to fight to chase something, and I fight it and I fight it and I fight it, and in the end it was the wrong thing to do. I was doing something that I shouldn't have been doing. I truly believe that I'm supposed to be here, and this was meant to happen, because there's no way the deal could have fell together as fast and as easy as it did if it wasn't meant to be and it wasn't the right thing to do. So we flew over here actually on August 13th and closed, and you know, basically 32 days later from me first stepping foot in Brainerd to closing. That was amazing. And then you know, BLAEDC's been so awesome. Sheila, where'd she go? Sheila's been so awesome. I've been through some tough weeks, and I'll tell you what, her energy and her vibe for this community is something else. I've been involved with the economic development people in Michigan and some other places, and you just don't get that positive vibe no matter what. So they've just been awesome. And Patrick with the city's been awesome too. You know, it's a positive and a negative for me. The city of Brainerd is tough, and if they weren't tough, I wouldn't be here. So to me, it's a positive and a negative. If they weren't so tough, you know, they scared some people off. They scared some people off that were going to come over and destroy that building and lose that site forever. And you know, they bought some time for some divine power to get me in the door and get me here to hopefully save the building. You know, things have been tough. That November cold caught me off guard. I had to stop what I was doing and prepare for you know, getting a building decommissioned to not have to heat, because you know, that my building's 640,000 square foot. It was all wet fire protection system. The first thing I had to do was get that converted to dry, so I didn't have to heat it. It's kind of interesting. I got to look at the bills from Wausau for last winter, and you know, I learned very quickly why they wanted to get rid of that building before winter. The gas and electric bills were, yeah, pretty crazy. So you know, my vision for that building changes on a week-to-week, day-to-day, sometimes hour-to-hour time frame. We've shown that building to so many people. We've pitched it to so many people. BLAEDC's bringing people in. I mean, it's a week-to-week phone call. Hey, we got this idea. Hey, we got this person asking. The reality of my vision going forward is I have a 2-year project to get the equipment out of the building. You know, Wausau pulled the hard drives out of the computers and left everything there. Everything. The machine shops, the electric shops, the spare parts room. And that's been a overwhelming undertaking, just trying to figure out the logistics of moving that stuff, selling it, trying to recoup my money, and then start moving forward with some leasing. So it's been tough, but I really have fallen in love with the Brainerd Lakes area. I've met some awesome people. I've had some really good meetings. I'm developing some very good friendships with Barrett Pet Foods, the Sarah and Tom Barrett, Grant, I can't pronounce his last name, Crow Ring Recycling, and his dad. His dad and my dad are actually about 20 miles apart in Florida for the winter. So you know, it's been awesome. There's a picture of the old 5 machine that we've got tore out partially. We're about 3/4 of the way through that. We're trying to get the number 7 paper machine sold. We've shown it to people from Vietnam, people from Mexico. There's some people from Pakistan trying to get visas to come in and look at it right now. And as you can see from the outside, we trimmed the trees. You know, I'm pretty fussy about my things, my assets, and I like to take care of them. And this has been an awesome experience for me so far. It's challenging. Luckily, I have some, you know, instead of just walking away from Michigan, my dad always told me that if I wanted to be successful in life, that I needed to surround myself with good people. And I did that, and not knowing that this was going to happen, I did that in Michigan. And I got some really great people back there that are taking care of things for me. And I'm putting that same team together here in Brainerd. You know, we've hired 3 or 4 local people. Katie, who's here today, my office manager, has been awesome. She's really hungry. She's really challenged and doing a good job. And you know, I feel like with BLAEDC, I'm surrounded by good people. I think that I'm in good hands. I'm 5.5 months into this deal, and it's still a little bit scary and a little bit overwhelming. But like I said in the beginning, I think it's meant to be. If it wasn't meant to be, and I wasn't meant to save that building and try to do something with it, then it wouldn't have happened as easy as it is. So thank you for having me. I've got the pleasure of meeting Aimee. She came in and took some pictures of my facility when we were getting ready to do this, and you know, that was a breath of fresh air too, to see another young person passionate about an old building and passionate about revitalizing something that's old into something new. You know, my biggest struggle in life is change, and I think that the world changed in 2008 and 2009, and I think that Brainerd has some changing to do to go along with that, and I think that has started, and we need to try to continue that as a community and as BLAEDC. There's, you know, the world changed. We don't make paper anymore. We don't build railroad cars anymore. As much as I want to, the reality of it is we just don't. So it's my job to figure out something else to do with some of these old buildings and some of these old things and create jobs and help our community change. So I'm really glad that I'm here, and it's been a really amazing experience so far, and I look forward to the next few years of trying to get somebody in there and creating jobs. So thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Minnesota Power is a partner with BLAEDC in a variety of ways. They support major expansion projects, provide financial support, and offer leads to attract new companies to our area. Their Economic Development Director, Nancy Knorr, has been a confidant to me for years. Today, we are fortunate to have Al Hodnik as our guest speaker. Al is Chairman, President, and Chief Executive Officer of Elite, which is the parent company of Minnesota Power, Superior Water, Light and Power, Elite Clean Energy, U.S. Water Services, and B&I Coal. Al graduated from the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis, and has served the company for 34 years, working in a wide variety of positions of increasing responsibility. Since joining the company in 1981, Al has served as Vice President, General Operations, Senior Vice President of Minnesota Power Operations, and Chief Operating Officer. Al was named President of Elite in May 2009, CEO in May 2010, and appointed Chairman in May 2011. Al serves on the Area Partnership for Economic Expansion, or APEX Board, the Board of Directors of Essentia Health Systems, Board of Directors of Polymet Mining, Lignite Energy Council, and Edison Electric Institute. He was the mayor of the city of Aurora, Minnesota from 1988 to 1997, assisted the Iron Range during the LTV steel closure and job loss, and has a deep understanding of all regions served by the company. Please help me welcome Al.
Well, thank you, Sheila. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you today. I'm going to move this mic up a little bit. There we go. Hopefully you can hear me. What a terrific video you have. I took three things away minimally from that video. The amount of entrepreneurial spirit and energy that this area has, and I see that in Aimee and I see that in Mike. So the next generation coming up has that same level. I see values in harmony with your aspirations, and so all of that kind of mingled together in there I thought was just a terrific takeaway. And lastly, and most importantly, a region that's well positioned, change notwithstanding. Change happens to everybody. In fact, I was looking at your Great Northern logo. It's one of my favorites. It has the yin and yang symbol. With all things come lots of risk, of course, but also lots of opportunities, and the challenge is to figure out how to navigate that, because there's going to be that all the time. And so paper mill closures happen, LTV closures happen, all kinds of things happen, but also things bloom again, things grow again, things take off again, and the issue is, are you positioned and ready for them? And hopefully Minnesota Power is a partner with you in that positioning. I know we have been for many years. So I'm glad to be with you today. Sheila, thanks for inviting me. We've been in this region for a long, long time. Cuyuna Range Minerals, of course, but also hydro at Pillager and Sylvan and Blanchard. So recreation resources provided in this area with our hydro operations along the rivers for many, many years. We've been affiliated with Brainerd for one cause or another since 1912. That's a long way back, either on the retail side or now today more wholesale. And it's very good to be working with Brainerd as we have in that way. Retail cities, I was talking to a councilwoman from Nisswa, former councilwoman, so Nisswa, Pine River, Long Prairie, Little Falls, Park Rapids, Pequot Lakes, all these areas, retail cities of ours we've been serving for a long, long time, and we have deep roots in the area. Let me just say, whether you're a wholesale city or a retail city or a customer of ours, we appreciate your business very, very much. We value your business very, very much. We don't take it at all for granted, never have. People ask me often, what business are we in? Of course, I get a classic MBA response, you're in the regulated utility business. And you have regulated utility commissioners and all the rest. And as a reminder, our employees, we're that, I guess, in an MBA sense, but we're in the security, comfort, and quality of life business. That's what business we're in. On the front end of everything else that everybody else wants to do is power, energy, electrification, and consistency, so that you can, whether it's a hospital setting or a former paper mill setting or something we haven't even invented yet, comes along, the internet, I guess, is that in behind that is the electrical bulwark and network that you need to have reliable, low-cost energy. That's the business we're in, at least at Minnesota Power. And we take that very seriously. Beyond low rates and high-quality service, I think the other value proposition that I think about most often, and I appreciate you highlighting Nancy Knorr, Pat Mullins here also today with our company, is our people, our culture, and our leadership. And so we're engaged in that way, not only here in the Brainerd Lakes area, but in Duluth and in International Falls and in Little Falls and Park Rapids. I think you'll find our people top rate, top shelf, with you, joined at the hip in this region to work with you. And that partnership, I think, endures not only in terms of service, but also in terms of policy setting. I was talking to Senator Root earlier, also the new representative over here, in policy making down in St. Paul. So we'd like to think of ourselves as partners. I hope we behave that way, and I'm humbled to be with you here today. You know, the theme is transformation, of course. The theme is revitalization and repurposing. And our company's been very busy in that regard as well. Elite has been transforming not only the energy space, but in a lot of other ways. And maybe I'll talk less and we'll play a video right now about our company just to give you a sense. I also recognize you've been sitting probably for 35 or 40 minutes, so if you want to stand real quick to watch the video, I'm okay with that as well. Please take advantage of that.
Elite is an investor-owned innovative energy company headquartered on the nation's largest inland seaport in Duluth, Minnesota. Listed on the New York Stock Exchange since 1950, Elite is the largest publicly traded company headquartered in Duluth. With 1,400 employees, Elite has operations in 6 states. Minnesota Power, ALLETE's largest division, brings power to people and businesses across northeastern Minnesota. Our electric service territory encompasses 26,000 square miles and includes some of the largest energy users in America. We power industrial customers that process natural resources for use in automobiles, aircraft, appliances, and paper products. Minnesota Power got its start harnessing the power of Minnesota's rivers and streams. A century later, it is once again leading the way toward a cleaner energy future, less reliant on carbon and focused on renewables. We're positioned to power new growth in mineral-rich Minnesota, uniquely located at the renewable intersection of hydropower from Canada and wind energy from North Dakota. ALLETE and its affiliated companies are transforming the nation's energy landscape. Among the region's top employers, ALLETE has been here for more than a century, investing in our customers and the communities where they live and work. Our talented employees are committed to delivering the energy that assures security, comfort, and quality of life. From homegrown solutions to game-changing innovation, ALLETE is a multifaceted energy company well-positioned for future success.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. We're very proud of that video. That was all produced in-house, and I'm very proud of the team. What's not included in there is our most recent acquisition. We just spent $168 million to acquire U.S. Water. U.S. Water is located in St. Michael, Minnesota, on I-94, going up the I-94 corridor. We were talking about that earlier. And you might say, what does that have to do with energy? There's a growing nexus between energy and water. Said differently, no energy, no water, no energy. And so I believe the last sort of debates about the air issues are soon to be behind us with climate change and carbon, and the next issues are around water. And certainly Governor Dayton's interest in creating 50-foot buffers along all Minnesota lakes and streams, the U.S. Waters Act of America, all those kinds of things that are advancing provide lots of opportunity for growth. So we're excited about that acquisition. More about that later. I thought I would speak off of this today. These are available to you. I would certainly encourage you to take these with you. I'm going to speak primarily off of a little card over on the right-hand side. I tend to speak more extemporaneously, sometimes to the chagrin of my team when I go wandering and around where maybe I don't need to be, but you certainly can take this with you. We have been busy on energy sector transformation. I thought I'd talk about that. I'd have some observations about natural resources. I'm a natural resources guy, and so I grew up on the Iron Range in the heart of the Mineral District, and I have a lot of views about that, and some of those are shared in here, and you can take those with you. And then lastly, Sheila, I thought I'd comment a little bit about 34 years of economic development, community development, sort of once a mayor, always a mayor, and my observations about the value of public-private partnerships. And so I'll try to move it along and be respectful of your time. Minnesota Power's Energy Forward Plan's been in movement here for 4 or 5 years, and so we're not standing around waiting for energy sector transformation. We've taken a progressive stance and a responsible stance. We've taken a responsible stance in developing legislation in partnership with the Minnesota Senate and House and the governors, both Pawlenty and Dayton, and also at a federal level. We've tried to deploy 3 principles, or 4, I guess. One would be diversity. Our energy forward thesis really is about third, and a third. Third renewables, a third coal, and a third natural gas, so bringing about balance. For some, of course, they questioned me a little bit about sort of the balancing aspects of it. Why don't you get rid of all of your coal? Why don't you go all the way to natural gas? Why can't 100% renewables work? I think when propane hit $8 a gallon last year in the middle of the polar vortex, there's plenty of explanation there why it is you want to make sure that you have diversity. And I see that in your economic development and community development pitch here. Diversity in terms of development, I think, is a critical principle. Balance is critically important. I already expressed it, but we have to balance stewardship, of course. We also have to balance affordability. Putting people out of business is the wrong approach as well. And lastly, we have to be and are responsible for reliability. So it's easy to talk about a lot of these sorts of solutions. It's quite another to apply them to the grid and make everything work on a day-in, day-out basis. It's kind of a ubiquitous, sort of innocuous grid. The lights are on all the time. What's the problem? Plenty, trust me, in terms of regulating it and keeping an eye on it and making sure you have power quality and all the things that go with it. We wanted to be responsive, of course, to the broader issue before us, and that is climate change. It is irresponsible to not take that somewhat seriously and make prudent steps along the way, reasonable steps, such that at the end of the day we can make the adjustments that we need here, not only in Minnesota and in the United States, but across the world, and so we take that very seriously. And lastly, of course, competitiveness is critical. The large industrial customers on the range particularly, but also the customers down here on the retail basis. It's critical that we maintain competitiveness. I noticed in the Brainerd video that they offer high quality, reliable, low cost electric energy. We're a big part of that. Currently our rates are second lowest in the nation for Edison Electric investor-owned utilities. Our rates will be going up, and I'll be talking about that in just a minute. But we like our low cost position right now, and we're a part of that solution down here for economic development. We've been innovative in what we've done. I won't bore you with too many of the details, but we did an asset swap out in North Dakota where we swapped an asset. We had a lignite coal asset, and we swapped that for a DC line, 560 miles of DC transmission line from the center of North Dakota all the way to the Minnesota Duluth area, basically. Minkota Power, the cooperative, took the asset. We took the transmission line, and in behind that, over the last 4 years, we built 500 megawatts of wind, nearly $1 billion worth of investment, and we've complied with the Minnesota renewable mandate, the 25 by 25, 10 years early, and we're very proud of that. We did it very creatively. We did it with a lot of ingenuity. We did it in a low-cost manner, and we're out ahead of the game on that, and we're really proud of it. We also are building a Great Northern transmission line. I was talking earlier about the Great Northern. That's a predecessor name for our company as well. That's a big transmission thesis out of Canada. We signed a 250 megawatt power purchase agreement with the Canadians. We've partnered with the Canadians for many, many years. And it's the marriage of that Canadian hydro which can reservoir itself up and down, if you will. It's all run-of-river, so it isn't flooding any native land, any Indian tribal lands. It's all run-of-river hydro married up with high-capacity North Dakota wind. And that marriage coming together almost like baseload energy, if you will, all of it carbon-free. That's what we're bringing into the United States here by 2020. It's the marriage of the Great Northern and the Bison wind out in North Dakota that we're very, very proud of. And Mayor Jim, I appreciate you being with us when we unleashed our innovative Camp Ripley solar project, 10 megawatts at Camp Ripley, where we've been host of that city for a long, long time on electric supply. We're very excited about our solar initiatives as well, and we'll be putting that into service. And certainly we're very much open to working with Brainerd Public Utilities and everybody else on solar initiatives that you might have that might make sense economically or otherwise with respect to that new statute. I do get questions about the rising rates context. Why are you doing it so soon? Why are you doing it so early? And there's a lot of good reasons for that. Again, part of it is a myriad of legislation. I won't bore you with all the details, but if you look on the back of this brochure, there's a lot of Minnesota legislation on here that we've had to comply with. Legislation that your representatives and senators have worked on, others down in the Twin Cities, and so on and so forth, that we've helped to shape. And so we've had this sort of legislative need, mandates and whatnot. So the Minnesota Mercury bill, we've had to get that done by 2015 or 2016, and we're going to do that. But one of the reasons on the early sites with the wind is this, that we did the asset swap, as I said. The production tax credit that the federal government provided to provide a subsidization of the wind made a lot of sense. And the way the federal government turns those subsidies on and off, you want to make sure you take advantage of them. You talked about the recession earlier, Mike. It drove down interest rates to next to zero. The cost of capital at the moment is very, very low. Interest rates have taken a marked rise today even. I was looking at the notion of interest rates, but our cost of capital was low. The wind sites that we selected in North Dakota were the premium sites, and Siemens had the best equipment available in the world, the 3-megawatt turbines, to make available to us at a low cost. So there's lots of factors that go into why so early. Why not wait? If you wait, you might miss the ball. Production tax credit not available. The wind sites all taken up, transmission lines consumed, and so you can't get where you want to get to, and those kinds of factors. And so we've saved with the Bison 3 and 4 edition, the municipal customers in our service territory, and Brainerd is a municipal customer, $4.6 million by making that investment early. It doesn't feel that way when your rates are on the rise, but nonetheless, it could have been even exponentially higher, and we're very proud of the moves that we've made in that regard, and we feel we've answered Minnesota's call for a cleaner energy environment, including some of the people here that have helped legislate some of that. Let me just say that we are in a rising rates context. We're going to do all we can to keep tabs on that and try to keep that under control. We don't intend to ignore that fact, but the reality is our second lowest in the rates nation cost is going to be climbing in 16, 17, and 18, and we're going to do all we can to compete for the business of the municipals. We're working with Brainerd right now on a new contract, if you will, and we're going to compete for that business and hopefully remain partners with the city of Brainerd over the long haul. Let me just drop with you a couple of industry forces that I think are critical to the discussion. There's been a huge technology explosion, as you know, so distributed generation has really come to the fore, not just in solar, but in other ways. And so the way we've had to think about our business going forward is both customers being consumers of electric energy, but also producers. So kind of a two-way system is what we've got to plan for over time at the distribution level, and increasingly that's happening. We've got to think about, though, risks that go with that. And when I talk about reliability risks, one of the largest reliability risks that we have to deal with on a day-in, day-out basis is cyber attacks on the grid. And if you think about two-way metering, right now we send power to you one way through a meter, and we send you a bill and you pay us. In a two-way system, there's a lot more access to the grid, a lot more risk for ne'er-do-wells to get into the system and cause trouble. And that's exponentially, of course, across the United States. And so we've got to manage all of those issues, and that we're on top of them, and we'll continue to be on top of them for you to make sure that you have a reliable power system. But when I say it's easier said than done, it is. It's very complex. We make it look easy, I think, some days, but it's a very complex system. So I'm proud of what we've achieved at Minnesota Power. Our rates are going up, but we've answered Minnesota's call and our nation's call to bring about a cleaner energy form over the long haul. We think we're well positioned for the climate change legislation that the EPA has passed, and while Minnesota's maybe a little out of step with some states, we're a little bit ahead maybe. Other states will have to soon catch up to Minnesota, and so this differential, if you will, that might exist between, say, Wyoming's power supply and Minnesota's power supply isn't going to last very long. And we still think at the end of the day we're a real good value, and we're going to continue to try to maintain it that way. Let me shift a little bit to natural resources. I won't spend a ton of time on it. In the interest of fair disclosure, again, I am on the Polymet Mining Board, and I know non-ferrous mineral mining has been controversial. I'm also, of course, the CEO that provides electric service power to some of the world's largest industrial mining projects on the Iron Range. So I wanted to say that at first, but let me just say that I reject and have rejected for a long, long time the false premise or the binary notion that it's either all environment or all jobs. I just don't buy that, and I don't buy that in a mineral context. I don't buy that in any other context, forestry or anything else. I think it can be done in harmony because of technology advancements and because of rigor in permitting in the state of Minnesota. So I start my morning there. Secondly, I start my morning in that increasingly, and I say it in these articles and you can read them at your leisure, the idea that we've forgotten where things come from. Urbanization of America particularly, everybody driven into the cities and not understanding from an agricultural perspective, farming, drilling, and mining, all of that occurs before value add. before you get into your cell phone and the gadgets hanging on your device and other things, there's somebody produced that backup stream, and it was created out of sort of something out of the environment. So we use the products, and they're integral to our daily lives. And of course, they certainly are going to be a critical part of energy sector transformation. I was speaking in Duluth recently about our 500 megawatt Bison wind energy farm in North Dakota, and people were somewhat stunned in Duluth to realize there's 1,000 tons of copper hanging in the air out there to produce renewable energy. 1,000 tons in just that one wind farm. The solar standard that Minnesota passed most recently last year, solar per megawatt hour, rooftop solar, is much, much more copper intense, than wind. And so imagine the Twin Cities blanketed in solar panels, as some would have it, two-way energy and all that. I don't begrudge it, but where are the minerals going to come from? And when I hear the manganese prospects potentially again here in the Cuyuna, a lot of those types of minerals go right into the batteries that support devices like this. They go right in the batteries of electric vehicles like Tesla and Prius and Leaf. And so you have to ask yourself again, if we want a clean energy economy, where are the minerals going to come from to do that? Recycling is certainly a part of that, but it's not the total story. Virgin steel or recycled non-ferrous needs an element of virgin iron units or virgin non-ferrous to stay robust and stay whole. So we're big supporters of that. I believe Minnesota can lead the nation as it has with clean energy in the same way in clean mineral mining. We support that and are all over it. And I think there's job prospects here in the Cuyuna Range. Magnetation, a company up on the Iron Range that is scooping up some of those old mine dumps, basically recycling, the ultimate recycling project in northeastern Minnesota. Technology is advanced where they can take out more of those iron units out of that stockpile, if you will, and they're turning that into a high-grade concentrate for steel making. Those jobs didn't exist just 3 years ago. 400 of those jobs, and people have characterized those as kind of a 5-year, kind of short-lived. There's hundreds of years worth of those dumps there from the 1900s, and they're reclaiming the land and recycling the land, and at some point in time all that'll be restored, put back to harmony with nature. And whether you want to bike on it, as the folks in the Cuyuna Range do in the pictures I saw on the web, or whatever else you want to do with it, it's creating jobs and people are living in harmony with it. I was expressing in Duluth when I was there most recently that on the shipping port, on the tourism end, where all the oohs and ahs occur there when the big ships come and go from Duluth, no one really pays enough attention, I don't think, to what is in those ships. 85% of that cargo is minerals. Coal, taconite coming and going every day from Duluth. And so the tourism port benefits from it, the working end of the port benefits from it, and again, another example of industry in harmony with nature basically every day of the week. So that's where I stand. I do think that the industries can evolve and need to evolve, so I'm not myopic. There's no way that I'm suggesting that we can survive exclusively on natural resources. All I'm suggesting, Sheila and team, is not to ignore natural resources. And I say that about the forest industry. If Minnesota wants to get serious about retaining a forest industry, they can do that. Will it be paper making? No, it won't be paper making probably anymore. Can it be tree sugars like Sagettis over in White Lakes or other projects that we're looking at even in this neck of the woods? Yes, it can. If, in fact, we're serious about aligning the research and getting after it. There'll always be debates about how much forest to take. There's a raging debate right now in Bemidji and Wadena about whether we should grow spuds or whether we should cut trees. It was in the Brainerd paper again today. I don't know what to say about sort of how much and how soon and how quick, but it's to be engaged in the process because, again, I think there's opportunities there for jobs and second, beneficiation of minerals. So that's where I'll leave it on the mineral side. If you'd ever like to debate and talk more about it, I'd be glad to do it. Let me just talk about some macro forces, Sheila and others, and our views on the value of public-private partnerships. The U.S. economy is mending. It's been a long slog. It's been a terribly long slog, and I don't know that we're totally out of it. Every time the Fed talks about easing and taking the stimulus down, of course, then oil collapses or something else collapses and it causes a quake. And I don't know that they quite know what to do over there. There's a lot of talk about tax reform in Washington, changing the tax code, of course, until you get to your favorite son or daughter in the tax code, and then they say, well, don't change that one. Everyone but that one, please. And so that makes it very difficult as well. And of course, the US dollar now is starting to strengthen. That makes manufacturing challenges for other people who are trying to export. And so we've got all that kind of muddle that's going on economically. But overall, I would say that Right now, things are progressing nicely, and Minnesota's economy is strong. I would say Minnesota has never been, sort of not immune to big, large economic forces. What I have expressed in my talks wherever I've gone is that the new collective experience that we're all feeling today is both a rate of change issue, how quickly and how suddenly things change, and the asymmetrical nature of where things come from, both opportunity and risk. Where before things used to be much linear and much slower and much more sort of determinate, you could figure it out. Today it's so asymmetrical. Who would have thought 5 years ago we'd been talking about U.S. energy independence for oil, and we still are. But the Saudis, of course, flooded the market. Oil's dropped to $40. It's caused the U.S. economy to maybe quake a little bit, frackers to shut down in North Dakota, and it's $2 at the pump. It's creating now jitters again in the U.S. economy all over oil, and it all happened overnight. Propane went to $8 in one winter, overnight. So rate of change and asymmetrical really makes it very, very difficult. And where the difficulties come from, it's difficult to vision and it's difficult to plan. How do you plan for a world like that where it can suddenly change overnight and you could have bet on the wrong horse or missed the opportunity all in the same week? It's very difficult for CEOs and others, boards, to put in capital. Who wants to risk capital in an environment like that? And what that leads to, or potentially can lead to, is paralysis. Paralysis is not a good problem to have when you have to continue to grow. And so those are the kinds of things that we struggle with. We struggle with it, you struggle with it, but it's part of our new reality and we have to figure that out. I've thought about the muddle, I've thought about the asymmetrical nature of change and the rate, and here's my best thinking about it after all of the years that I've been around in it, some ideas, I guess, that I might leave with you. I do think it's critical that shared visions get developed, and whether they're manifested in a video or they're carved out in a room like this, is to truly work on a shared vision. I think principles are important. You should have some governing principles about what you will or won't do. But I'd urge you to stick and stay away from absolutes. Absolutely not, or absolutely yes, because that rate of change and that asymmetrical nature might knock your absolutes right on their side in 1 week's time. So principles, yes, I'd manage the absolutes. Diversity, I've already spoken about. I think you should have several eggs in your local nest, not one egg. The Iron Range is suffering right now because it has one egg, typically mineral mining. It needs other things to do, and the IRRB is certainly trying to do that. I think you need to know your audience. I chuckled about this earlier with my friends from Nisswa. We were talking about this. I couldn't be more impressed with what BLAEDC has done on the exec development program. That's an example of knowing your audience. Executives, retired and otherwise, who can be in town to talent and mentor leadership groups coming up or young entrepreneurs coming up in the business. Is just unbelievably remarkable what you've done with that. I'm so impressed with that process, and also the support that they've been given to boards. So that's a positive on the know your audience. But here's a couple of thoughts about pulse testing that audience. Because of the rate of change problem I spoke about, you don't know necessarily what's going on with the pulse of your communities or those around there unless you're out there pulse testing regularly. Here's some examples. I was involved with a product and a project in Grand Rapids a few years ago. It had to do with some lines at the Blandon UPM Kimini paper mill. And in that particular sense, we wanted to build a new combined heat and power plant there, very efficient, biomass, all the rest, and might be a little scoop of coal, but not materially large in nature. And you would think at UPM Kimini in Grand Rapids, that project would have sailed right through. One of the primary employers in the community, 5, 6, 7 decades of paper and pulp making in Grand Rapids, and the project didn't make it. It didn't make it for lack of economics. That wasn't the challenge. It died for lack of support. And it was kind of mystifying to the Itasca Development Corp. It was mystifying to me and us and everybody else. And the IDC hired the University of Minnesota to come on up there to take a look and try to assess what were the broad conclusions of that whole situation. And the broad conclusions were twofold. There were several, but the broad conclusions were twofold. That the population that had moved into the greater Grand Rapids area were not indigenous. That doesn't mean they were bad people. That doesn't mean they didn't care. They cared very much. They were very passionate, just not about paper making and not about cutting the forests and those kinds of things. And so they found that disconnect, and more importantly, they found, and secondarily, the sort of apathy had crept into the community. Apathy. from the people who did work 5 decades at the paper mill, who were engaged in the community, didn't show up. And so the combination of apathy with new voices created kind of a disconnect in Grand Rapids that they weren't totally connected with. That's an example of pulse testing that I talk about with regularity. I don't know what's going on in the greater Brainerd Lakes area here with pulse testing, but I think it's something you should be mindful of. Another example is North Shore. Up on the North Shore, we bought the Taconite Harbor Energy Center from the defunct, bankrupt LTV. I went up to Lake County and Cook County with a lot of trepidation as the chief operating officer of the company. God forbid they would want us to restart a coal-fired power plant on the North Shore. That was the paradigm I went in with. And what I found out was it was like a coming savior. Lake and Cook County were embracing, finally, some private investment, some private development, some job creation, because so much of their territory had been converted into conserved land, conservancy, and they had no means to develop. I see that playing out in Aiken in certain ways. You've seen the debates recently in Aiken where lots of land has been turned over, or wetlands have been turned over for mining projects in northeastern Minnesota, almost taking the developmental context out of Aiken's hands. So you have to kind of know your situation and what's going on. And so I'd urge you to pulse test regularly so you stay in touch, because the rate of change and the asymmetrical nature is happening a lot more rapidly than you would think. And so something you did 10 years ago is old news compared to what it might be today. With regards to repurposing facilities, I have a lot of observations about that. I am so disappointed that Wausau closed. First of all, let me express that to you. When LTV closed and 1,500 people were dislocated in White Lakes, it completely devastated that community where I was mayor, and I went back to help. So first of all, those that might have been affiliated with Wausau and lost jobs associated with Wausau, I want to express my feelings to you for that. But facilities can be repurposed. They're tricky. It's tricky what to do with them. Ford Motor Company in St. Paul is being repurposed. They tore it down. They want to put a neighborhood in there and kind of a sexy property along the river and all the rest. That's their vision for what they wanted to do with it. LTV has been standing in the rain for 13 years because Polymet wants to do some mining there. That building's been hanging around and it's had to be kept an eye on. It's not easy to keep an eye on buildings. You have to heat them. You have to keep an eye on them, and someone's going to be responsible for them. Georgia Pacific in Duluth is closed. It sits on the waterfront right now. Duluth wants to redevelop that property. Can't find a willing counterparty. In that case, Georgia Pacific. It's hard to work with them because they don't necessarily want to give the property away, and they're not going to necessarily want to repurpose it. And lastly, my example is the Northwest Air Base in Duluth. Nancy Nora was critically involved in this. And by the way, Nancy, congratulations on your ascension to president of Apex in Duluth. Northwest Air Base went out of business, and it sat there for 10 or 11 years, I believe, and DEDA, which is a BLAEDC operation in Duluth, paid to heat it, paid to keep an employee there, paid to keep an eye on it. You can imagine the amount of pressure DEDA was getting, wasting public taxpayer money keeping track of a building like that. And yet at the end of the day, I wear this pin proudly, this US-Canadian pin, because AAR finally came to Duluth. Air Canada brought their jets to Duluth. I think we now have some 400 people working in the avionics business there again, but it was an 11-year-long slog. So when you take on buildings like that, I hope you're supporting Mike, because there's real risks in taking those kinds of buildings on. The risks are kind of divergent. What do we want to do with it? What does Mike want to do with it? What does the community want to do with it? I think that's a risk, and you better have good advisors. I think they can be a drain of capital. I think they can be a real distraction. I think they can be a real opportunity. And so it's to really work in partnership with Mike, whoever has the building, to say, what could it be? What do we want it to be? What are the risks associated with that, taking that on? And who's going to help us? Who's going to advise us in times of great change where things can flip on a dime and we could really end up in a bad spot? So those are my thoughts about it. I would say also that 2 last thoughts I have. One is that private leadership works. And so while public agencies like the IRRB and DEED and all these public entities that sort of provide money, they're part of it, the private model leads and can help. Apex does a good job of that in Duluth. BLAEDC has a lot of private people being involved with a BLAEDC operation here. That is just critically important, to be engaged in your community from the private leadership sector. DEED and IRRB can only do so much. You still have to put some real skin, some real money in the game, take the risk, the entrepreneurial risk that goes with it, and the rest has to come to support it around there. So I think it's very important to do that. I think it's very important to be positioned. It's very important to have perseverance. And lastly, in times of great change, and this is where I'll end my remarks today, it's important to have great and trusted partners. Great and trusted partners. There's lots of people who come and go with an idea, but are they going to stay there and endure with you through all the slogging, through all the thick and thin that goes with what goes on in developmental efforts? It takes a real endurance. I think that I would speak to the Minnesota Power context in that regard. We've been with you, both in a retail and a municipal setting, since 1912. We've been through a lot of slogs with you. We've been through bad days with you. We've been through good days with you. We were with you when the Potlatch Mill closed the first time. We were with you when we invested in Minnesota, before Minnesota went down. And we're going to be with you and are today with the transformation or whatever might be occurring over there with Wausau being closed. Nancy and Sheila have been partners for 25 years. That kind of partnership. Not once a week, not just because it happens to be hot or something really intelligent to do at the moment. We're with you all in thick and thin. Our loan program has been excellent. I was chatting earlier with a gentleman from Pequot Tool. We've invested in Pequot Tool, Lexington Manufacturing, Prestige Plating, and Crosby Manufacturing. All those have evolved to one state or another over time, but it was Minnesota Power who's been involved from the beginning, and we'd be involved today again if there was the need. I would say that we have been involved with the 2020 Economic Vitality Task Force that you talked about. We've been involved in this manganese exploration, mineral exploration business that maybe is on the fore. We think we can bring a lot to that. And I would say most importantly, we're currently marketing your area and your sites for a large sort of industrial circumstance, high tech. It's confidential in nature right now, I can't get into it, but I wouldn't say the company was necessarily a daily rainmaker, but the company's a pretty good rainmaker. We get a lot of people coming by our doorstep with regularity, and we're able to then network with Sheila and other developers from the region to bring these opportunities out before you. So I know that there are likely to be other power producers that'll come forward to say they can offer you a better price, maybe from Wyoming or some other place over time. I don't think they can bring the full service equation that we bring. Reasonably low cost electricity, responsiveness with respect to state policy, people like Nancy Knorr, the company's capital, both dollars and also reputation capital, all comes with the Minnesota Power package to the Brainerd Lakes area, to I Falls, to Park Rapids, and to Duluth. That's what I think our value proposition is, and we're proud to be a part of it with you. We first forged this relationship in the 1900s. We have seen this area evolve from forest products and trains and transportation into high-tech office centers. Every time I go through Brainerd, I'm totally impressed with what's gone on in those mall sectors with high-tech, high-end jobs to go along with manufacturing. And so you've transformed yourself. And I'm confident that the mill sector will also get transformed over there, and we're going to be a part of that. We're part of yesterday with you, we're part of today with you, and we're going to be part of the future with you. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thanks for having me out. Minnesota Power couldn't be more pleased to be your partner out here in the Brainerd Lakes area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al, for that thought-provoking message. I guess one takeaway is we're here with a whole room full of trusted partners who have stood by BLAEDC over the years, and we appreciate your support, and we look forward to continued support in the future. A couple things, Aimee, you got to introduce me to that Dave guy. I've got some big ideas too, so can always use some money. Sheila talked a little bit about a baseball team, and every baseball team needs a good pitcher. And one of the human interest stories about Mike Higgins is he's got a son who's a good pitcher. I know he's a good pitcher just knowing about him, but he actually got drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals, and he'll probably be playing AA baseball this year. So he can be on the BLAEDC team, the BLAEDC baseball team. So. Again, thank you, speakers, for joining us today. You had a great message. I promised you at the beginning that we had some quality speakers, and they all delivered. And again, thanks for coming to the annual meeting, and hope to see you again next year.